Good evening. Great to see you all. Welcome again, hopefully again, to the 48th Annual Toronto International Film Festival. There you go. Lovely. My name is Jason Anderson, and I'm one of the international programmers here at the festival. It is my great honor to be welcoming you to the Canadian premiere of The Promised Land by director Nikolaj and Arcel. And this film is part of our special presentations program at TIFF this year. And as I said, it's a big highlight of said program. You may remember a film called A Royal Affair. Yes, yeah. Which played the festival in 2012, made a big impression here. And I believe you're about to see a film, by much of the same team, and it has the same kind of sweep and grandeur and power and drama and chutzpah as the previous film, maybe even more so. It's had a really great impact on audiences already. Nikolaj Arcel, the director, is a Danish writer and director whose other films include King's Game and The Dark Tower, and also the writing of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. And we're very happy to have him here, along with team members. And we'll start off by, first of all, some thank yous. We would like to thank our lead sponsor, Bell, and our major sponsors, RBC, Bulgari, and Visa, for their continued support. We'd also like to thank our government supporters, the Government of Ontario, Telefilm Canada, and the City of Toronto. This film is eligible for the People's Choice Award. Vote for your favorite films at tiff.net/vote. And we would like to thank Mongrel Media and Magnolia Pictures and Trust Nordisk for providing us with the film. Thank you also to Danish Film Institute and the Norwegian Film Institute for their generous support of the film. And now, please join me in welcoming to the stage Nikolaj Arcel.
Hello. Wow, what a theater. This is amazing. I wish this film was shown in theaters like this all the time. First of all, I'm so happy that each and every one of you is here to see this. This is a big moment for me. I'm back after 12 years in Toronto, and last time I was here was an incredible experience and an incredible audience, and I'm sure you will be as well. I hope. I'm going to do a Q&A with the main actress and the producer after the film, so I'm not going to waste your time talking a lot. I just want to say that I've been wanting to do this kind of film almost my entire life. When I was a kid growing up in Denmark, I was really a big fan of, David Lean and those kind of huge epic movies. And as you can imagine, in a country like Denmark, where we are 5 million people, it's not like that's a pretty difficult thing to be able to make, with the budgets that we have and all that. But for this one, we sort of managed to scrape together the money and of course the beautiful, wonderful cast and everything. So this is kind of like a dream come true for me, and I can't wait for you guys to see it. So enjoy, and I'll see you afterwards.
Thank you very much. Please join me in welcoming writer-director Nikolaj Arcel. And Barbara, Amanda Collin. And producer Louise Vesth. Thank you so much for being here. I'm just so thrilled to be able to share the film because it's a movie. I mean, it is a grandly satisfying movie for all kinds of reasons. We're certainly eager to hear your questions and comments, but just to start with Nikolaj, we sort of talked a bit at the beginning about kind of always wanting to make this movie, although this movie is, as you've probably noted, kind of impossible to make in where you're from. What were some of the beginning steps for making this film?
You know, it was actually it was the perfect storm of various things happening in my life. One was that I was quite late in life in having children. I had my first son when I was 47. That's a little bit late. But literally the same couple of months where he was born, and my life, obviously, as many of you know, completely changed. I got this novel, and what I read into it immediately was the theme of you possibly, you know, the human condition, that you have to choose what your life will be mostly about, whether it's about your ambitions, your desires, your drive, or whether it's about choosing intimacy and family and love. And before I had my first child, I didn't really know the other side of it. My entire life was just about making movies and striving to become a better director. And when I had my son, I was like, doesn't really matter anymore. Like, he's the one that matters. So I immediately felt connected to the theme of the novel and the theme of Ludwig's journey in the story.
I'm curious, did you know this chapter of history very well? I mean, is this something you'd encountered?
Well, the thing is, he's a complete unknown. Yeah. Even though he's actually he was real, Ludwig. He's based on a real character, a real person. Nobody really knows who he is, because he went to the heath basically 100 years before they actually started cultivating the heath in Denmark. So everybody knows who actually cultivated, but very, very few people know that he was actually the first one to grow something out there. And so I didn't know before I read the novel, but of course when I had read it, I started researching and found a lot of it fascinating.
That's great. And I'd just love to hear also from Louise, I mean, kind of, at what point did Nikolaj sort of come to you and sort of say, I have this grand ambition for this, massive film that is, not something that's easily accomplished in Denmark, certainly. I mean, what was that beginning for you?
Well, first of all, I thought it would be not very complicated because it was the heath. So I thought, okay, it's outside. I mean, you don't have to build a lot of things. You have to build a house and then go to the heath. And then we found out that the heath was the most protected land in Europe. So from there, it became kind of complicated. And then we were shooting post-corona, and we had a lot of challenges. But fortunately, we had a lot of good financiers and investors that helped us through. And yeah, here we are. But I grew a little older.
Yeah, me too. But interestingly, what is so rare, and never happens in films, is that you never shoot where the stuff actually happened, except for this film. We actually shot it on the heath where Ludwig, 300 some years ago, built his house, which was incredible for us to be standing at that spot, So that is so rare, and that was very special for us to be there.
That's great. I'd love to hear from Amanda, just kind of entering the world of this film somehow. And I'm sure that's, it's like this. I mean, was there a particular hardship? Did you feel like you were actually stuck on the heath for a good long time yourself?
I didn't feel like I was stuck. Yeah. It was a very beautiful experience to be there. I think nature plays such a big part in this movie, and that's also why I'm so proud to be in it, because that's what I love in movies. Beautiful pictures. And so it was a true gift just to show up on the heath every morning. Yeah.
And I was just thinking too, like there's so many great female characters in this film too, which is, I think, quite unusual for a film. You've imagined what an 18th century sort of historical epic is going to be. I mean, was that part of the attraction for you, that this is in many ways a contemporary character in so many regards too? This is not, someone you can relate to and audiences can relate to.
I mean, obviously, when you come from outer space, it's nice to do some 1750s stuff after that. But I think for me it's also so interesting, and what touches me every time that I see it is that the period is, of course, in the clothes and the surroundings and everything, but it's really in the way also that the women aren't free. So in a way, Ann Barbara is just like me and all the Louise and everyone around here, but she can't act unless she's allowed to, which is like, for me, it's hard to watch. I just want to tell him to make his own fucking stew, right? But she couldn't. And so, so that's also another kind of period piece. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. That's great. Actually, I would love to make sure we have time for folks in the audience. Oh, hand up over there. Please project. I'll try to repeat your question so everyone can hear as well.
Social class is a very important part of your film, and I wanted to hear more about the groups that I've never heard of before, the taters, the darklings, the outlaws, so just wanted you to share a little bit more.
Just to share more about the class and class structure in the film, thinking about the taters, all these different groups that we hear about in the film, and obviously are part of the society.
It's so interesting you should say that, because I didn't originally feel that was a big part of this movie, but then of course it is. And I've always been very indignant, is that the word, indignant, about class and like differences between people. And as many of you, some of you know, Denmark is quite an equal country compared to a lot of other countries in terms of income, and basically everybody in Denmark is more or less middle class. So I've always been really fascinated with the differences in the people. But I have to say that a lot of that came from the novel. And my moose, the character of my moose, was the reason I originally fell in love with the novel, because I felt, oh my God, this is Scandinavia, 1755. There's literally not a single colored person in that country at the time, so she would have been the only one, and that was extremely interesting to me, how she must have felt, and how, and that was a great way to, for me to enter that story. I almost saw it through her eyes. It didn't turn out that way. It's more from Ludwig's and probably Ann Barbara's eyes. But to me, she was actually originally the character that got me sort of really invested in the story.
Oh, great, thank you. Other questions? Oh, I think there's a hand. Yes, go ahead, on the aisle.
To Promised Land? No.
Yes. Question about the title change from Best Start, and as it still, I guess, still is in Danish.
It is. It's in Danish. The title is The Bastard, and the reason why it's been changed is because The Bastard in Danish, and it's a cool title. I really love that title. It literally
applause from the balcony.
It literally means a person who is born out of wedlock, but it doesn't mean a jerk or an idiot and all those things in Danish. But it certainly does here, and so I think the title change was probably to avoid the confusion whether we thought he was a prick, I'm sorry, or if it was literally a bastard. So that's why the title changed.
That's great. And we can always just use the Danish title if we feel like using the word.
Bastard.
That's right. Oh, right here. To talk more about the music choices and the sort of grand Western sort of fantasy element to it as well.
It was a big swing for me on this, because on a small Danish film you have sort of limited options for composers. But I am sort of always a little bit naive in who I can get. On Royal Affair, I got Gabriel Yared, who did like Talented Mr. Ripley and English Patient. And somehow I got him just by writing a nice email. And he was like, that sounds fun. And this time I actually had one person in mind only, which was an American composer called Dan Romer. And he did the HBO show Station 11. He's done a Pixar film called Luca. He's done some really big projects. Beast of the Southern Wild, really great movies. And so I did the same thing. I wrote him an email saying, I know you probably don't know who I am. This is a Danish film. You have probably zero interest. But I can promise you one thing. And if you do my movie, there'll be no studio notes. There'll be no it's just you and I, and we are the ones making the decisions. And I think like the next day he wrote to me, yeah, let's talk, you know. So he came to Denmark for a month, and we just worked very closely together, creating. But it's a very Dan Romer sound. I mean, if you sort of hear his other work, you can hear echoes of that sort of his. It's very much his musical world.
That's great. Thank you. I'm raising my eyes to the balcony to make sure I get some attention up there. Is there other questions up there? I will lower my eyes then. Here. Go ahead. To talk more about the theme of justice and really, yeah, exactly what's just and unjust.
She certainly gets justice, I would say, right?
Yeah.
But you're right, in a very wrong way, because it's not right to kill someone, obviously, for justice. But yeah, I don't know how to answer that, really. I think for her also, and Barbara just do what's good for the greater out of love constantly. And I think that's so wonderful about this character that you guys wrote, that it's there's nothing else to do all the time than the right thing to be done in that moment. And when I watch it, I'm like, why did I have to do it? Right? Like, wake up, you stupid Louise, and do something. So, yeah, but I get what you mean.
Did we understand your question
Yes,
right?
did we?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Other questions, comments, please.
Yeah, it's getting late. People want to go take a leak, and
That's right.
Can I add to the music thing? I
Yes,
just think
please
it's
do.
such a cool thing, like, I don't know, for me because music plays such a big part, obviously, for everything. And when we had lots of long drives together. Now people are walking out and they're like, oh, music, here she goes. Bye, guys. Anyways, well, Nick and we had a long drive, and you told me about Dan. And so actually this was quite early in the process. So every time we walked out in the heath and there was a bit of moments by myself and stuff, I had Dan in my headphones. And so he played and Barbara's system for quite a long time shooting the movie. And I don't know. I think sometimes it's so beautiful how he ended up saying yes. And I was more excited about that than anything else.
That's great. There's a question right there. But a character sort of embodies motherhood and sort of in relation to another character you've played.
I think now that you actually mention Raised by Wolves also, I think just made me think of in none of the two, she's actually a real mother, which is can lead me to a point of we all have so much love to give, right? And so instead of chasing the medal or whatever, I think, and Barbara's point, or also mothers to some extent, is to just give that love whenever you have it. And I don't know if there's a kid right next to you, love it and make it your own, because maybe it didn't happen the way you thought it would happen, but it happened and they're there. And so, yeah, wake up and just spread the love.
And sure, go ahead.
Nico, can you elaborate on the use of cinematography to capture, the diverse change of pace, to also to portray the character's emotions in contrast to the vast land? What are the choices or challenges in the filming process?
Just asking Nikolaj to elaborate on
Cinematography?
that. Cinematography.
Yeah.
And
I did something very different on this one, which was that we wanted to achieve. I mentioned to you guys that I was a David Lean fan, you know, and I was looking at those epics from the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and I was wondering how that was achieved, that sort of specific look. So we actually went kind of back in time, looked at the way they always kept, even in the close-ups, they kept this feeling of scope and background, and you could always sense. Of course, David Lean had 2,000 extras. We had 5, but still, there was that idea of how to constantly keep the background and the nature and everything very present in the frame, even if it's a big close-up of Matt or Amanda, you know. And that was actually a technique that we tried, and it was it's very much part of what gives the film its look. So really, we owe a lot to, you know, David Lean basically and his films. Yeah.
That's good. Thank you. Other questions before just a little bit of time left? I have one in mind myself. You got one? Oh, sorry. Oh, go ahead. Then we'll go to you after. Go to you first.
Elaborate on why he changed his mind in the end.
Yeah.
First of all, a lot of this film is fictionalized. The novelist has fictionalized parts of it, so it isn't per se a completely true story. It's inspired by true events. But in terms of why Ludwig would give up his title and go search for Anne Barbara, I just think it's in that final moment when Anne Moose leaves and he realizes that this is worth nothing, this medal, this thing, this title is just worth nothing because he has all the people he's grown to love has gone, has left him, or not with him, and that's when he realizes he has to just give it up in order to, you know, in order to pursue what he feels is right, like Anne Barbara, try to get her back. But you could argue that the movie could have ended with him just eating the soup, and it would have been a horrible tragedy, you know. And I actually almost did, you know. I almost ended it that way. I really felt but then again, I had all my collaborators saying, you can't have people sit for 2 hours and then he's just eating soup, and they're gonna hate you, you know. I was like, yeah, but on the other hand, you know, like, you don't know. But I ended up feeling that way myself. I was like, oh my God, he has to have his Anne Barbara in the end, otherwise I can't bear even watching it myself.
So true.
You know, it's 2 hours and 10 minutes. So yeah, I ended up making that choice quite late, actually. Of course, we had shot the material, but yes, I ended up doing that.
It takes a long time and a
It
lot of
does
letters
take
to
a long
get her
time.
out of there.
Exactly, yeah.
That's right.
Too long.
Yeah. He tried the legal recourse, but then he had to take his measures. And there's one more question from behind. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. 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 I agree.
douche is the right word.
And that is, and then just to rephrase, just to talk about the choice of villain, and it is again a very satisfying villain.
A funny story about that. We had written that character obviously as you know, a douche, but also also if you think about it, and you probably all noticed this, he's kind of also right. You know, when he says life is chaos, like he kind of has the upper hand in terms of philosophy, because Ludwig is a little bit, no, I just want my medal. And he's like, no, just lean back, enjoy your life. Like, that's the villain saying that, right? But when we were casting it, I had certain different actors coming in. I didn't know Simon beforehand, but when he came in, he was a little bit like the Schinkel. I mean, and he was kind of, he's a very sweet guy and very, very nice and, you know, warm now that I know him. But at that first meeting, he was a little aloof, arrogant. He was like, yeah, where am I going to, whatever, you know. Like, so he was rambling, like, you know, very quickly. And so I was like, oh my God, there he is. It's just like perfect. I don't even have to direct him. Like and really I didn't have to, it's weird, I didn't have to direct him a lot because he was he just enjoyed all his life, and it felt so natural to him. You know, I don't know what it was, but he's a great
really
actor.
nice
He's
guy.
a really nice guy.
He is a really, really nice guy.
We have to say,
He's the best.
but he has a dark
best
side.
actor
I think, you know?
as well. He's acting. He's acting. He's not.
Right.
And that is the story we have, and we're sticking to it.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and
Thank
thank
you so much,
for
guys.
coming.
Thank you.
Yeah.